Hi friends, welcome into Teachers Talk, and today we're talking about corporate sessions, how to lead them, how to facilitate them, how to do them both in Zoom and in person in real life, and then how to make sure that we can put ourselves in the position to both let people know we offer them and to create opportunities where these come to us. Now, for me, I've been doing corporate sessions for many years, long before perhaps meditation and breathwork were popular or interesting, and they were opportunities to go in and create moments of calm and quiet and create those moments where people could step away from the business of their day. Now, the way I'm going to talk about this in this session is I'm going to approach it in two ways. I'm going to talk about corporate sessions as a whole, what works, what doesn't, what works for me, what I recommend, what things to stay away from. And then I'll talk about the different formats in which it can come to life. And then I'll finish with opportunities on how it could perhaps be something that becomes part of what your world is all about. So for me, when I'm doing corporate sessions, one of the things that I always need to remember and that I always kind of put forward is that oftentimes a corporate session, and this can be anything from a big business to a small business, I consider a corporate session or a brand session any time where people are being brought into these practices where they're maybe a little newer at them, a little less aware of them, or the majority of people don't have as much information as perhaps, say, a wellness crowd or audience, or people who are proactively paying money to come to a session. It's way different the approach that I would take if someone was coming to a wellness studio or like a yoga studio to do breath work and meditation. They had paid money to participate in the class, and they have a proactive position in coming into the class. They want to learn, or they know what this practice is about. They know the benefits, they feel the benefits, and so they have already that level of buy-in and appreciation of breathwork and meditation. Now, of course, every situation is different, every organization is different, and sometimes now, more and more these days, breathwork and meditation is so much more well received. However, in that first context with corporate sessions, if I'm coming in as a special guest or as someone who's teaching during a session, it's oftentimes my first question is going to be asking the corporate or the business how it's being positioned that I'm coming in. Now, of course, there's times where it's being positioned is we're going to bring in a breathwork and meditation session, or Michael's coming in to run a breathwork or meditation session. A lot of times that's the best opportunity because that means people who are coming have an awareness before they walk through the door, before they sit down, what the session's all about. Where it gets challenging sometimes is perhaps if you're coming in to offer a session and it's a mindful moment, or it's a little break in between busy activities, or we've got wellness week or mental health week and we just have guest speakers that we're not going to tell you about because there's an element of surprise and delight that we're just using these practices, or someone like me coming in to create a little moment of reprieve within a busy schedule, a busy time, or a focused on the calendar. Now, if I don't know the situation, I'm always going to assume that people in the room have either low or no experience with breathwork and meditation. And the reason is because if you do have moderate to high experiences with breathwork or meditation, then you're going to be just fine participating in the session. You'll get a lot from what I'm going to offer. And in many ways, you'll be an advocate for the room to say, this is important, this is valuable, let's all participate in it. And so regardless if the room is 5 people or 500 people, and I've worked with all shapes of it, from 3 people to I think the biggest session I've done is something like 10,000 people, where every environment is going to demand a different nuanced approach. However, if I'm generally going in knowing that I'm coming, I'm going to be offering breathwork and meditation, and that the session is something that's going to be valuable or beneficial, then I'm always going to make sure that I'm offering something that is allowing everyone to participate. Now, the trick that I've always done in my life, which has always been helpful for me, is not to just start into practice. I'm not going to say, hi, everyone, welcome in, close your eyes, let's start. At the very beginning of any corporate session or any group session like this, I'm always going to start by giving an understanding what the session's about. So I'm going to say, hi, everyone, welcome in. We've got a 20-minute session, and we're going to do some breath work and meditation eventually. However, let's just start by me telling you what we're doing, how this is going to work, so you know how your time is being valued in this moment. That's really important because in corporate environments or office environments, people are busy. A lot of times people don't necessarily even want to come to these sessions. They're just being asked or invited into the session. It's part of a requirement. It's part of good office culture. So they're coming in half attentive to the session or potentially disengaged but know they need to be there. And so in those environments, helping people understand how the session is going to work is really effective for a lot of people to get on side. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to qualify some rules. I'm going to say, hi everyone, during this 20-minute session, part of the session is designed to step you away from your office, your emails, from your teams. And even though, and this is where I'm going to give validation, even though I know you're busy, everyone has things going on, this is going to be really great and helpful for your mental health, for your productivity, for your team building, and personally, it'll give you this feeling of rest and refreshment. So straight away, I've given some valuable takeaways. I'm giving them return on their investment of time. And so I'm going to say, this is what we're doing. This is how it's going to go. And then the rules I'm going to set is this. If I'm allowed to, of course. If I've spoken to management and said, I'm going to set a few rules. It says, during this 20-minute session, I'm going to ask everyone to put their phone face down, and I'm going to make sure that everyone in the room is on equal playing field. So during this session, doesn't matter if you're senior management or if you're the new intern, everyone in here is just here to do a session of breathwork meditation. That allows sometimes people to step away from their identities and roles in the corporate environment, step away from their management titles, or be able to understand that they can speak up and share if they're newer or lower within the team. When I do that, it goes down really well because it means people can actually just participate as themselves. They don't have to participate as senior management leadership. They don't have to participate as, someone who's always doing this or that. It allows them to just be in the room for the session. Once I've done that, and let's just call that onboarding information or information to get people into the session, I need to very quickly offer some sort of group interaction that's going to bring the room together to get us going in the right direction. So again, I'm not yet even doing any practices. And I'll give you a little snapshot to where I'm getting to. In a 20-minute session, if I was doing a 20-minute session with a company or an office, I'm probably going to only do a 10-minute practice maximum. If I'm doing an hour session, I might do a 25, 30-minute session maximum. A lot of what I'm doing is framing up the benefit, experiencing the practice, and then giving them tools for onward care, tools for understanding, tools and help to wrap up the benefit from the session. So to get people on side, what I was talking about is what I'm really going to do in that first instance is I'm going to help people understand that there's a need for these practices. So then my go-to thing is I'm always going to ask a room, I'm going to say, raise your hand if you're a busy person. Everyone's going to raise their hand. I'll say, raise your hand if you're not a busy person. Every now and then there's a joker or a jokester who's going to raise their hand and say, I'm not that busy. And I'm going to work with that as dialogue for the room. I'm going to say, how interesting is it that most of you raised your hand? And even for the one or two people that raised their hand saying they weren't busy, how strange does that feel to say, oh, Vanessa's not that busy, right? Oh, Jackson feels like he's got nothing on. But yet the rest of us always have something to do, things happening, busyness that happens. And so what if I could tell you that there was tools like breathwork and meditation that can support your mental health, increase your productivity, and allow you to be better at managing your time with more clarity, decisiveness, and the ability to reduce the busyness that we have in our day every single day. So what I've done straight away is I've given you the results. I've shown you the benefit before we even did it. This will bring more people on side. This allows some more people to say, oh, this is interesting. I'm up for that. And again, those of you who know, or those people who know breathwork and meditation, they're going to say, yep, this is going to be great. And so what I'm doing is I'm essentially setting it up so that whatever I do next is going to be received in a meaningful way. So when I do that, then I'm going to craft and share a practice, whatever's going to be valuable in that moment. Most times in an office setting, I'm going to do something that's relatively down-regulating and balancing. There are times where I might stand everyone up and do something energizing. But again, that might be about what kind of mood do we want to create? What kind of value do we want to bring in? And that's always asking more questions and less to the organizing team of how does this work? Where is this sitting in the day? What's going on? I'll tell you a funny story. A few years ago, I was flown over to New York to do a big HR convention. There was about 3,000 people in the room, and I was there as a surprise and delight mindful moment, which means I was coming out on stage to thousands of people and no one had any idea what was going on. Before me, There was some really amazing corporate speakers, the people in business who were talking about their sales projection and amplifying their business growth, all these kind of technical presentations that were really enlightening and lifting the crowd, but also very serious topics that were necessary as a business that they need to know, or people need to know there. I think it was the HR industry. And then also I asked what was going on after. And after my session, this little surprise and delight 10-minute session with me was Ryan Reynolds, and then Viola Davis, and then a bunch of celebrities who were there to kind of motivate everyone. So I was stuck between this rock and a hard place where they were coming from heavy information business things that they needed for their success, and then they had a lot of the inspiration, the exciting things that they were there for, all these celebrities that they were there waiting to listen to. So I was essentially wedged into this surprise and delight mindful moment, which was arguably the bathroom break, the phone break, the email break, and all the things that were transitioning between the beginning and the second half of the day. And so for me, I'm walking out on the stage going, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to do something to get the room into the moment. Because the organizers had asked me there, we don't want people running out of the room because we don't want them late to come back for the celebrity talks. We don't want people to jump back onto their emails because we'll lose them in the gap. We don't want people jumping on their phones because that's how everyone gets distracted. So my job in this mindful moment where I was asking everyone to breathe, to recenter, and to come back, I spent that, essentially was 11 minutes doing a whole little chit chat for 5-6 minutes to integrate and communicate and have an interactive mindful moment. And all we really did at the end was about 3 to 4 minutes of quietness, a few deep breaths, really steadiness and grounding. I spent the first half going, hey, see how busy you are. I literally said, imagine who in here is busy. And I said, imagine if you have one busy thing that turns into two busy things, because this is how work goes, and you have two busy things that turns into three busy things. See how productive you are right now if you can do all of those things at one time. And I said, switch your fingers. You can try this now. And I literally asked people to do this to the point where this is not breath work. This is not meditation. This is mindfulness in action. This is your attention and your awareness. This is the ability to be productive when your mind's a little bit all over the place. And by doing that, and if you've tried it with me, it's not as easy as I'm doing it because I'm well practiced at it, but it becomes part of that presentation to cultivate the awareness and attention of people to in this little mindful moment. They had a good laugh. I made a few jokes. It allowed people to actually stay with me for a few minutes, for them to buy in on the benefit of taking a few deep breaths and taking a minute or two in stillness. And so in that corporate session, a lot of the times it's getting people on side. It's getting people interested, showing them value, explaining the benefit, and then doing the session, right? And that can work. If I'm doing it now, if I'm going to talk about different formats, in an in-person session, it is a lot easier at times because you're in the room. There's that social dynamic of people not wanting to be rude, wanting to be polite, participating with you, especially if it's a manageable room size. Whereas online is a little bit different because you have the benefit of anything outside the little square you can't see. So if you're a participant at home, you can obviously keep things on mute and you can yell out into the other room. Even if your eyes are closed, you can still be listening to chit chat. And this whole dynamic of being a little bit more distant away is something you have to deal with. And the reality is part of that is the same principles apply. I want to get you on side as early as possible. I want to speak to you about the benefits of the practice. I want to show and highlight how you might need these practices through how you feel or how busy your day is. I'll often be speaking not to rest. I won't be speaking to finding moments of pause or ease. I'll often be speaking to stress, productivity, efficiency, clarity, decisiveness, all the things in a corporate or an office environment that are beneficial to have as part of your job. So this session can help you do that. One of the things I always talk about is this will help that. This breathwork or meditation session will help that. That being your need to be more productive. That being a presentation you have to make. That being decisions that are going to impact your job or the project or the longevity of the business. If you do this, it will help that. And I'll speak to it in that language. And so with corporate sessions, they're all going to have different dynamics. You know, some of my most favorite corporate sessions are going to be environments where you wouldn't have expected it. HR companies, accountancy firms, places where everyone feels like they're a bit of a suit and tie. And the reality is, it's just about beneath all that, it's humans need this kind of support. People need this kind of support in a corporate environment, and never shy away from going in and creating a moment where people can literally just step away from their work identity, step away with permission to do not that which is busy and stressful, and have a little moment that's valuable for them. The biggest approach with corporate that I think is really important is you have to have a takeaway. It can't just be a nice experience for experience sake. Otherwise, it just becomes another version of a lunch break, another version of cake in the afternoon. You have to give people ways in which they can support themselves and bring some of this back with them home or pass it on around the office. So at the end of every corporate session, I'm going to have either a QR code you can scan to do another practice with me, which I'll have recorded and say, hey, if you're in the session, here's a QR code, do this practice, you can keep it, it's a gift for me, you can do it anytime you need. I'll usually do something like the breathwork protocols that we have at Just Breathe. I'll do something that gives them onward care. If there's a little bit of budget, I'll try to work with the organization to say, hey, can we print out some cards to do this or do this or do this? And all I'm really doing is creating a way to give people tools that are helpful for them, right? And so in these corporate sessions, there's an element of inspiration and education that creates an experience that's going to be valuable for them in the big picture of the thing. The last thing I want to talk about is how to create and find these opportunities. Obviously, it's going to be different for everyone. If you're in an organization, start with your own organization. If you have friends in corporate organizations that might be up for doing these types of things, do that. One of the best things you can do is just proactively reach out and say, I'd like to do this, and just see how it goes. You might be pleasantly surprised at the response that you get. You might be pleasantly surprised at the interest that comes back. And all that really comes down to is putting yourself forward as someone who can create an opportunity to help people manage their stress, increase their productivity, or create moments that kind of step them away from the busyness of their everyday life. The other thing I always say, which is helpful, is put yourself in a position to be visible, whether that's creating a few pieces of content or videos for yourself online that you might share or post, or if not, you just have at your disposal that you could send to people. Hey, I do sessions like this, or here's a few examples of guided meditations that I offer, or breathwork practices that I do. One of the things I do in my corporate sessions, I record them all where possible. I bring a phone in, put on a microphone, and anytime I'm recording a session for a corporate environment, I'm going to let them know, hey, I'm coming in, but I'm also going to record the session so we have a good reference point. I'll also give that recording to the organization to say, hey, you can pass this around the office for anyone who missed out on the session, but it also means I have another example of sessions I've done. And for me, I've been lucky enough to be able to share sessions in all kinds of organizations, companies, corporate environments. And so my little hope for you is that in this little talk, that the big takeaway is this: when you're going into a corporate environment, first create a moment where you're allowing people to come on side with you. Get them to understand the benefit. Get them to buy into the busyness. Allow them to see the value before you just try to do something with them. What's the best thing you can do is when you do that, all you're going to do is you're allowing people to experience for themselves and understand the benefits for themselves, and then they're far more inclined to do a practice, to share a practice with you, figure out the benefits, and then you help them understand the benefits in the long run. Like anything we do in breathwork meditation, the practices themselves are valuable, but also the clarity that comes from it, the value you find from it, and the long-term understanding of how this can help that can be a really helpful thing when you're working in a corporate or an office environment. I hope that's helpful. This was a short little video to help share some insights when you're working towards sharing breathwork meditation in corporate or office environments. And of course, there's endless amounts of thoughts that I have, insights that I can share. So if that's for you, reach out, get in touch. And I hope this was a helpful little teacher's talk today. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you again soon.